All right, good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. We're about to get started. This is the Economic Development Committee. Ms. Donna, Paul, are you calling roll? Thank you.
Roll call, Councilmember Moreno,
Present.
Councilmember Morel, Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Green. Present. Councilmember Thomas. We have a quorum and let the record reflect that Councilmember King is here.
Thank you. Before we begin, let's take a quick moment of silence. As you all know, this is the 18th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and the second anniversary of Hurricane Ida. Both of those storms caused the city of New Orleans to lose residents of our city, people who many of us knew and loved. So let us take a moment of silence for those who we lost during those two storms. Thank you. Hey, Rep. Boyd, nice to see you. So I believe we're still waiting for our congressman to show up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the agenda items a little bit out of order. I'm going to go ahead and take my agenda items first, which is number 3, which is payments to New Orleans youth workers, and number 4, discussion on a resolution urging the Louisiana Legislative Auditor to perform a detailed audit of the city's accounts payable and vendor payments in general. I have some comments on why we have to take this very necessary step of bringing in the legislative auditor to take a look at our finance department. For far too long, we have received complaints of non-payment for work done for the city of New Orleans. Complaints coming from big construction and engineering firms, but also small businesses, minority-owned businesses, professional service firms, maintenance operators, and most recently, the youth in our youth work programs. The situation has escalated to the point that businesses no longer want to do business with the city of New Orleans because getting paid has become so hard. It's just not worth their time. This has led now to severe consequences for services to the people of this city. And let me just briefly explain how. First, I'll start with the issues with the bid process. Due to the amount of reputable firms who no longer want to do business with this city, it's leading to projects and initiatives getting no bid responses or very limited responses for work. When there are no responses to RFPs, which are the bids, then the city is forced to continuously put the project back out to bid over and over again, leading to major delays. For example, the last 3 times that the Department of Public Works has advertised for a traffic signal contract, there have been 0 responses. Of the few groups who are still willing to do work with the city of New Orleans, they sometimes come in with bids much higher than usual to make it worth their while for having to deal with payment headaches, which are likely to come. So it's also costing the people of New Orleans more money and more time to get projects done. Inability to pay on time is also having a major detrimental impact on minority and small businesses. We have had small businesses come before us and explain that they cannot hold on for months on end with lack of payment from the city. Larger contractors have told us that their DBE partners can't make it when payments are months to even a year overdue. If we tolerate the city's inefficiency to pay small and minority businesses on time, then we cannot claim to support small and minority businesses. We are also losing the ability to call on our own currently contracted vendors for work because they have shut us off due to lack of payment. We learned in late June that immediate repairs to the NOPD's 6th district air conditioning could not be done because our air conditioning vendor had shut off the city of New Orleans because of the number of outstanding invoices. And finally, we all know the issue with not paying the kids who put in hard work for the city. Some of them, their checks, if received when the city promised, will be 3 months from their last day on the job. As Tiger Hammond said yesterday, he is the head of the AFL-CIO. He said, what a terrible example the city of New Orleans is setting for the children. For some of the kids in this program, this money meant school supplies or a tablet or clothes for the new school year, or even just assisting their family with some extra cash. But it did not come on time, and we did fail them. What's also so astonishing is that money is not the problem. Money is not the problem. You all have heard from our different budget committee meetings, the amount of additional monies that the city has because of all the federal funding that has come in since COVID. So money is not the problem. So why aren't people and contractors and workers getting paid? So this morning I offer up two legislative items. The first, dealing with ensuring that children who are getting late checks are also provided every other type of additional penalty pay under the law that they are owed. The second legislative item is, as I mentioned, a more serious step that I never thought I'd actually have to take. That is requesting that the legislative auditor investigate the city's billing and payment practices. I did not come to this point lightly, nor did I come to this point overnight. This has been several years of watching the situation worsen and countless meetings with the CAO and the head of the finance department, raising this issue over and over again, yet getting no solutions. The legislative items today request that the team of auditors from the legislative auditor's office determine what the issues are and then make recommendations for improvements. This is not, as I mentioned, a step that we want to take, but we are now left with no choice. We cannot allow for this situation to worsen. This must be improved, and I believe a third party is necessary to truthfully come forward and let us know what is wrong and how to potentially fix this. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to turn this ship around. Improve services for the people of New Orleans, get projects more timely executed, and support our local businesses and our local people. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any comments from the dais on any of those items if there are some. Councilmember Green.
I just wanted to add that one of the concerns also in the community is why certain jobs aren't getting completed. For example, if you go by certain street work jobs, they aren't completed. Well, sometimes it's because our vendors say that they haven't been paid and that they paid their workers and they don't have the ability to continue. So in addition to everything that you mentioned, finishing those jobs sometimes has to do with the finances. I hope that we can get to certainly the bottom of it. But I will tell you that I was the head of economic development, and it was 25 years ago. And unfortunately, we're still talking about the same issues with regards to getting contractors paid on time. It does draw up the, run up the price if we have fewer vendors. And also those vendors have to get financing many times to be able to float until such time as they can get the payment from the city. So it's timely that we're addressing this issue now, but I do want to emphasize that it's so important because some of the services that we provide too are not being provided as efficiently because of the fact that the vendors aren't able to continue their jobs until they get some payment from the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. We have a lot of, did you have a comment too? Council President Morrell.
I'll be brief. Think for anyone who drove across the city today and you saw the plethora of traffic lights that were out once again throughout the city. For anyone who had to cross Claiborne today at all, I feel for you because you all experienced it. I want to note something. So we had a contractor who did traffic lights, All Star Electric. This council fought repeatedly on an almost monthly basis to try and get their invoices paid timely. And despite our best efforts to fight our own city to get their payments timely, they walked. Because every business in the city cannot afford to float their bills, to float their payments because the city's incompetent. And so, as y'all may recall, when we came in last year, one of the first things people said is, you got to get a handle on these traffic lights. What's going on? And you saw through a lot of effort, I think I recall, I'll see Councilman Druso here, we froze the budget of DPW to get the traffic lights corrected. And here we are a year later with no traffic light vendor again. And that's no one's fault but the city's, because if we can't prioritize paying vendors, if we can't make them whole to do their job, we can't expect that when things fall apart, no one wants to fix them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councilmember Harris.
Not to pile on All-Star, but you know, the traffic light issue is a grave concern, but I want to just put a finer point on it. When the city doesn't pay its vendors, that means that vendor's employees do not get paid.
Right.
So my across the street neighbor works for All-Star Electric, gets picked up every morning to go fix our traffic lights. And guess what? Again, if we as a city are not paying All-Star Electric to fix our traffic lights, which are critical for public safety, then their employees are not getting paid, which means that employee's rent does not get paid, or their mortgage, or their their house and all of their expenses. So it's a trickle down effect that we have to solve as a city. We have to serve as the shining light, the example of making sure our bills are paid so that our people are taken care of. So I'm with you, Council Vice President, and thank you so much for authoring this legislation.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harris. All right, seeing no more comments from the dais, we do have plenty of public comments. So I'm going to allow for this public comment to be for items 3 and 4, since I combined them in my opening statement. So feel free to comment on both about the kids getting paid and also about just in general getting people paid and the legislative auditor coming in. First up is W.C. Johnson, followed by Sharon Jasper. Come on up, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, or good morning, I should say. W.C. Johnson with Community United for Change. We have serious problems in this city, which everyone now realizes and understands. We've been talking about this for some time, and now we see the urgency of what we've been talking about for several years. Brother Eugene, I'd like to tell you, you need to stop making excuses for the administration. 25 years ago was 25 years ago. Today is today. So we understand that the administration is not doing its job properly, sufficiently, or any way we could consider that they're doing it properly. Now, this council is here because of the Home Rule Charter. The administration is here because of the Home Rule Charter. And I don't know how many times I'm going to have to tell you this, but the Home Rule Charter has mechanisms in place for you to be able to do what you need to do for the lack of concern the administration seems to show, or the inability they have to perform the way that they need to perform. On the audit, we're 100% for that. We need it. We've needed this 2 years ago. But we definitely need it today. So please consider what it is that's happening with the administration, and that the audit could possibly let everyone know what the problems are. That will tell us how to solve and resolve the problem. Now, before I go, Ms. Jasper is having medical treatment. So she wouldn't be here with us today, but she asked that I make it known to you that she supports your efforts to get the children paid and to get an audit here in the city. Equally, Brother Chewy is having medical work done today. He won't be here, but he wants it known and put on the record that he and his organization support the children being paid and supports an audit of the administration. My last note, when I came into the front door, there's a sign about civic leadership that's going on. You need to call all of the administration and have that particular seminar, because obviously they've missed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, so Ms. Jasper is unable to be here with us today. Mr. Chewy is unable to be here. Mr. Baptiste. Followed by Edward Parker.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, good morning. You're right. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
But I'm here to drag for the city finance department. The city finance department, they got their checks every week. These kids need their checks. A couple of council people, a couple of state reps bought uniforms. They help with school supplies. So I shout them out for that. But look, the city finance has been lying to the kids from day one. They get their checks every 2 weeks. Now, to be fair, Mr. Larry Barbino, people have attacked him about not paying. It's not Mr. Larry Barbino's job at all. It ain't the city council. It's that man right there, the city finance department. It's a disgrace. It's unacceptable. Now, we wonder why the children are out here doing violence. I met some kids, they said, we can't get our check, Mr. Baptiste, but we'll steal a car because we get $1,000. This is a bad example what this city did in this administration. Ask me, all of them need to be fired. Sunay from Job One have been ducking y'all, saying she flying to conferences. She said 5 weeks she been flying to conferences. Who paying for that? The city. But what's more important, the kids or them? We setting a bad example. We need to fire the whole city administration and everybody responsible and shut Job One now because we got kids haven't been paid in 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Baptiste. Edward Parker, followed by Angelina Elder.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Ed Parker, New Orleans United Front. Thank you guys for what you're doing. A couple years ago, we voted to get a different kind of council. We wanted a progressive council. Want to thank all of you for that. You are a different kind of council. You are not going along to get along. Thank you and continue to do what you're doing. As far as the children are concerned, let's look at what we're talking about. We're talking about Black kids. If you look at the data center, and I've said this before, everything says that our Black families live at or below the poverty level. These are the kids that we are hurting the most, at or below the poverty level. This is a damn shame. And the city administration has had enough time to straighten what the problems are. So thank you very much for getting these kids their money with penalty. And also, yes, let's get that audit.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Angelina Elder, followed by Gary Valier.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Angelina Elder, civil rights activist. I'm one of Mama D's students. I'm happy to hear that the money is there for y'all, our political leaders, and I know y'all work as hard, as diligent as y'all can, but since Katrina, a lot of our funding have been taken away, been privatized, colonized, all of our back schools, everything have been hijacked. But the root cause is we need y'all to tell us the truth. Because a lot of things that has happened to us, y'all going against the Sunshine Law, not alerting the public, not alerting the public. You see, because we was here for Katrina. We was on the bridge in the water while gentrification watched us suffer, plotting on us, how they was gonna colonize the land and take over. You see, we the seeds of our ancestors. I was born in 1965. Everything out here is pure racism, pure racism. I have been fighting on my house going on 13 years, can't even get public records from the city attorney's office. No agency out here serve us. Me, no politician. But my problem is other people's problem because other people's houses was damaged by the city that the city contract and hired. Been working under 2 presidents, under 2 administrations. The Biden administration and the Trump administration said, Ms. Elder, you should have never had to fight that for. Had to fight it to the UN, to the United Nations, behind public records. But just to say, tell the people the truth about the charter coat movement that came in through our educational system. Wherever is government funded money, that's where they at. That's who holding up the money. The elite, the rich and wealthy, we don't need them. We don't need them. Cause I'm a historical researcher. In our island, Miss New Orleans is built on trade goods and services. We don't need nobody from out of town to tell us about economics. We go run our economics in every village like Disney World, mass production. But tell the people the truth, because y'all going against the Sunshine Law. That charter called movement in here that's worked in our educational system, wherever is government funding there, they're still holding up the money because everything is targeted to us. Black, African, Black and brown people. We don't need y'all, y'all need us to keep us colonized. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Ballier, followed by Giera Rayford.
Good morning, Gary Ballier. Kids not being paid is setting a bad example. And like WC said, when I came, I took a picture of it. Civic Leadership Academy on the 8th floor, room 8E10. Maybe we need to talk to those kids about how to run a city or how to run a city department or how to run a city agency. Because I think some of them could do a better job than some people that's in charge of city, some of these city government entities can do. You need to talk to those children. They can help you solve these problems. I'm a retired fire captain. The city still owe me money. It's going to be a few years before they pay me the 25 cents on a dollar that was due to me. I knew none of y'all were part of that, but that's how the city does business with paying bills. We had problems with lifeguards last year. I know Larry put the effort into trying to get them, but it wasn't enough. There should be no pools closed in the summer. With schools, government, clergy, nonprofits, and businesses, the word should go out where we have more than enough lifeguards or too many lifeguards. And not just lifeguards. I mean, our kids in the summer shouldn't just be picking up paper, working in gardens. They should be shadowing doctors and business people and bankers. It shouldn't be just media jobs that Parkway, no. And again, we failing to take care of the kids, we failing to take care of the elderly, we're not taking care of the least of us. If we put the effort into taking care of the least of us, and with the 5 things I named, with the government, the clergy, the business, the nonprofits, and the school system, if they were working together, we wouldn't have any problems. Zero. They would work themselves out of a job. And on that audit, yeah, open all the books. All the books to all the city departments, all the city agencies. You're gonna find a lot of stuff don't do what we think it do. That 10 cents on a dollar that you're spending at the store, it makes your dollar worth 90 cents. A breakdown on what happens to that money, because a lot of people don't understand what happens to that 10 cents, who get what penny. And on the back of those property tax bills, it's obvious to me a lot of people just come here and pay. They don't read the back of the bills and see that they're not getting what they pay for. The library system kind of get a pass. I know the fire department is always asked to do more with less. But everything else needs to be scrutinized. We giving money, our property tax money, to entities that can't spend the money for another 15 or 20 years, and it makes zero sense to me. Yes, audit. Let's find out where our money is.
Thank you. Giera Rayford, followed by Kim Ford.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Jara Rayford. I am the owner and broker of Rayford Realty NOLA. I am in favor of the audit. I just want to point out that I have been a partner with Job One for 3 years, and I support the kids getting their money on time when they're expected to be paid. I have heard from interns directly that were attending college as freshmen that they did not have the money that they needed for their school supplies, to outfit their dorms. And honestly, I think it's a shame when students are put into this place and they're not allowed to buy the things that they need. I myself am a product of a job summer internship program through the city of New Orleans. I think I did it through TCA. And I can tell you, even though I had a scholarship for high school to attend one of the predominantly Catholic high schools here, I had to pay for my own uniforms and my own school supplies. And the money that I got from that summer job paid for those items because my parents were not in a position to do so. So me personally being in that position, knowing that the exposure that I got from the program allowed me to be where I am today, because I am DBE certified, I am a small business owner, and I do give back to the kids because I understand in being in that position, I think is a shame, because if I had to go without paying for my uniforms or even having my school supplies, I'm not even sure my academic career would be where it is. So I am in favor of the audit from that standpoint. Also, I do believe the staff at Job One hands are tied. They can only do so much, but knowing that the funds were actually there, because I thought it was a balancing issue, actually makes me feel worse, because the money is there, but they're just not doing what they need properly for it. Also, our students are being exposed to different things by their summer job. I know me personally, we expose them to lawyers, inspectors, realtor companies, title companies, contractors, all type of businesses, but majority of those businesses are actually DBE and small businesses. So if those businesses are also impacted by the lack of funding and not being paid as a contractor, I think it needs to be reevaluated. Also, one of the students that I had that participated with me last year actually received a Bill Gates scholarship, and he was able to get his volunteer service awards through my organization, as well as money that he needed for college. So that's just one student that was impacted, as well as several others. And also, I know Councilman Green has heard from me about the streets and the contracting. I have elderly people that live on my street. They have to park 2 or 3 blocks away when it's raining to get soaked in the rain. My neighbor across the street has an elderly mother that's in a wheelchair, and they have to call us to help move them whenever she has to go to a doctor's appointment. And all this is because of delays. I emailed the contracting department, asked when the streets can be at least paved or rocked on where we can drive on them. I get a date, the dates have to be extended, and it's all because our contractors are not being paid. So when we think about contractors and job, it goes deeper than that. People are not allowed to live the way that they need to live. Students are not allowed to buy the supplies they need for school. It's a ripple effect. And the fact that the money is there, I think is a shame. So I just want to point out that I am in support of the audit. We need to find out what's going on with this, because we also go against other cities. I have a hotel background, a master's, and we compete with larger cities, Orlando, Nashville. People are going to get to the point where they don't want to come to our city if we keep putting out the negative light that we have on our city, that we can't pay our youth and our vendors. So from that standpoint, I am in favor of the audit. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Kim Ford?
Good morning, council. I too am appreciative for all of the work that you've done to try to remedy this problem of the youth, again, not being paid this year. But the oversight for this administration, you know, we tried to recall this mayor because we have long since been having grave concerns about what was happening here in the city of New Orleans with the finances. And the punitive portion of the administration is working overboard. For people that have lived in their properties, for families that have lived in their homes for 100 years, are losing them because they haven't paid taxes in the past 3 years. Because one, for Chewy is sick. He was sick before the pandemic, then he got COVID again. And now he's up to lose his property. And there's a whole building up here on Porter Street that's in the millions of dollars in taxes owed. But the punitive nature of this administration on our community, they have been a serious plague, and they have been a serious plague long before we got here. So just because it was a previous council does not mean that the new council gets to have that break to come in and get acclimated to the issues that we're facing right now. And I say it all the time, just because you're new doesn't mean that we're new. So yeah, you need to have an audit. Yeah, it should have been done. So yeah, let's get to it. And the way that Black families suffer so much more from the improprieties of this mayor's administration is ridiculous, that she gets to go on TV and says that she's a Black woman. It's disingenuous. And when we as a people, the city administration loses nothing when we have to sue them. And I've had city employees tell me, if you don't like it, sue us. But that's actually us suing ourselves, because our tax dollars pay for that. Our tax dollars. And then we're the ones who can't even get the jobs to even pay the taxes. So yeah, we need to have it needs to be audited regularly. And not after we get to this point, after we've lost so much. And especially what's happening in the agencies. Whether or not we elect those people over those agencies, we elect the people who oversee them. We elect you guys. We elect the mayor. We elect the sheriff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those agencies that they oversee need to be able to have regular monitoring. And then let me also say that the city of New Orleans has over 6,000 501c3s in this community. So every time I see a 501c3 come sit at this table before our bi-weekly council meeting, it cuts me like a knife. Because we cannot keep doing the same thing and expect change. And we pouring money down the throats of 501c3s, but then we still get this kind of playback where they come up here and act like none of the issues we facing in this community, with crime, with education, with peer survival, we can't afford to just let it go. People can't afford to come down here and talk about that. Those people are not here. They're people in my community, New Orleans, I was born and raised. People in my community has an innate trust to expect that the people who they elect are gonna do the job to protect them. And they have suffered quite long enough. And here on the anniversary of Katrina, I feel some kind of way, because we lost almost 2,000 New Orleanians 18 years ago. And so many people don't even act like it was a thing. When we had dead bodies that turned into carcasses laying on our streets for weeks, when our families and our livelihoods got all turned upside down, and we get to let the same dog and pony show go on down here where our leadership, everybody in New Orleans need to show up today. They need to show up and talk about the issues that we have faced as a community since Hurricane Katrina, that we have faced as a community, and then they go unchecked. We're not even part of the recovery process. Those statues up on the street where meet here, because guess what? We got to see what a failure that is after Ida all over again. But they didn't have the people who were most affected sitting to the table to say, what can we do as a community? Because I'm here to tell you, anybody who survived Katrina would not have supported, volunteer emergency or something like that, because everybody have to survive after a storm. Don't nobody have time to get up here and help somebody. We all trying to survive.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Ford.
the phones don't even work during a disaster. Did y'all know that? A lot of folks don't even know that, but that's a real thing. So we don't get to be brand new today. Pay our children, audit this finance department. Where's our money going?
Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Yeah, we don't even have to vote on that.
Paul, any public comment? Nope. Okay. So both of these legislative items will be provided to the public, and they will be filed. They'll be circulated by my office for co-authors. I hope to have all members of the city council sign on to both of these items, and we'll discuss those at our next council meeting for full passage. Okay, another housekeeping note. I've heard that Ms. Villavasso does want to come before us today to talk about youth being paid through the workforce program. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the collaborative agenda item next, have you all's presentation go now, and then Ms. Villavasso can come at the end of the meeting to say what she would like to say to the committee. So with that, we go to our next agenda item, which is a presentation and comments regarding House Bill 224, Act 230, with respect to expanding equitable business opportunity programs and procurement set-asides. I believe we have Mr. Stallbert who's going to present, our dear friend, Representative Delisha Boyd. I believe our congressman is here now, Congressman Troy Carter, and Mr. Kennedy. And Mr. Kennedy's making his way to the table. And Ms. Major is at the table as well. So just so everyone understands what this item is about, this year during this legislative session, the Collaborative, a group who we're very familiar with, helped shepherd a major victory for minority businesses in the city of New Orleans. Go ahead, y'all, take your seats. Good to see you, Congressman. Take your seat. I know you're familiar with this chamber.
I've seen it once or twice.
Seen it once or twice before. So the legislation that we see these esteemed members before us who are here today to talk about is House Bill 224 by Representative Boyd. It provides at least a 10% set aside to economically disadvantaged businesses in New Orleans. This has been a key part of the Collaborative's agenda, but to get something like this done, it takes finding the right champion to really get this through the difficult process of the legislature. And for those of us who were up in the legislature this session, you can tell that it was complex, to say the least. So they found that champion in Representative Boyd. And of course, I've also been very proud to work hand in hand with the Collaborative over many years on a variety of many issues. And now I, along with the rest of the city council, look forward to the implementation piece of this very important legislation. I also want to say thank you so much for the work of another great legislator, someone who served on this particular body, the New Orleans City Council, and also was my colleague in the state legislature. And that's our Congressman Troy Carter, who every step of the way from when he was on the local level to the state level to now the federal level has been such a champion to help small and minority businesses succeed. And so thank you, my friend, for all of your help in that effort. With that, my friends, I turn it over to you all with whoever would like to start the presentation.
We're doing the video first, correct? We're doing the video first?
Oh, you want to run the video first? Let's run a video first.
He's got it.
In 2012, a call went out, much like a clarion call to small and DPE business owners about the billions of dollars coming to New Orleans. The one who made the call is Barbara Major, and those of us who answered the call are known as the Collaborative.
My name is Barbara Major. I am a founding member of the Collaborative. I would like to thank Governor John Bell Edwards and Representative Delisha Boyd for having the courage, the competence, and the fortitude to create a place and space through law where the opportunities for those businesses that have been historically neglected in New Orleans will have a real opportunity, a fairer chance to create wealth in our community.
The mantra for the Collaborative has always been the pursuit of equitable policies for certified DBE firms. And we have once again achieved that goal.
For DBE firms like mine, Balthazar Electrics, to compete directly with other DBE firms, rather than the big companies that we sometimes have to compete against and don't win.
It's companies like mine, a company of 50 people, who constantly competes against companies that are Fortune 500, Fortune 100.
It's been a long time coming, but we have not completed this race yet. We still have a long way to go because the determining factor will be the leadership of this city and the community making a decision to create a fairer opportunity to be on the playing field.
That means being able to show you what we can do. It means being able to compete against other companies that are like-sized. And then maybe one day those two companies that have become primes can prime on the even bigger jobs than that.
Well, when you walk down the street or when you drive throughout the city of New Orleans, you can look up now when you see LED lights, when you see traffic signals, when you see EV chargers, you can think a Black female woman company sold those to the city of New Orleans.
And what's more important is making sure that the leadership understands that the intentionality in the program, the execution of the program, and the monitoring of the program has got to be just as intentional as those leaders that help bring it here.
The Collaborative has worked for years to create equity. We've gotten to this part of the journey. The leadership of this city will determine, along with the citizens of this city, whether or not those businesses that have served us, those businesses that have been pushed aside, marginalized historically, will have a real opportunity to create wealth in our community.
House Bill 224 by Representative Delisha Boyd provides relative to contracts awarded to socially and economically disadvantaged businesses in the city of New Orleans.
Appreciate y'all's work and welcome. Good to have all of you here today. Well, I think we're ready. So this is House Bill 224, which became Act 230.
The city of New Orleans completed the 2018 Economic Disparity Study, which evaluated the spending, contracting patterns, and procurement practice of the city. It was reported that only 2% of private non-city construction contracts were awarded to minority-owned firms. Therefore, House Bill 224 was initiated by the Collaborative, authored by Representative Delisha Boyd, unanimously passed by the legislature, and today signed into law by Governor Edwards. House Bill 224, now Act 230, authorized a socially and economically disadvantaged business set-aside program in the city of New Orleans. The intent is to establish a narrowly tailored program that would create a fertile pool of work where small and emerging certified DBE firms can compete against firms of like sizes.
We've been working on this set aside bill for more than 12 years. It is critically important to minority businesses in the city of New Orleans.
This would impact companies like Mind Services to benefit from this 25%. It affords me an opportunity to bid with other minorities who provide similar services or professional services without being in this big massive pool where it's so difficult to compete. So it is the ceremonial signing by John Bell Edwards, as well as Representative Delisha Boyd, is monumental.
Previously, I had to compete with larger development companies. As you know, larger development companies have more financial resources. They have more capacity in back office. I think that this opportunity here will allow me to compete more effectively against companies that's my size. For the first time, we will have an opportunity to have a pool of work set aside specifically for minority and small businesses. This helps them to become prime contractors, to help them to be able to get contracts without competing with large firms. And we think it is clearly a move forward, and we look forward to putting this bill and this program into action.
Something that the collaborative group for 12 years been pushing, not just the fact that we have worked so hard as the collaborative group, but we are representing generations that's coming up behind us to know that this is finally happening. History that is going to help so many minority business owners.
Our sincere thanks to State Representative Delisha Boyd, who authored House Bill 224, now Act 230, Governor John Bell Edwards for signing it into law, our state legislators, our mayor, and members of our city council. It is now vital that as we go forward from this historic moment, our diligent commitment to continued collaboration begin. And together, we frame an unprecedented implementation process that is sustainable for generations to come. As our Congressman Troy A. Carter Sr. stated, this bill empowers local leaders in New Orleans to uplift their community by providing opportunities to businesses that traditionally faced hardships. By setting aside contracts for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, we are fostering inclusivity and driving economic growth that benefits everyone.
All right, the floor is yours.
All right. Madam President and honorable members of the City Council, always an honor to be before you. Let me give you great applause for the incredible work that you're doing under incredibly challenging circumstances. Leadership is difficult. You've stepped up, you stand out, And we appreciate you giving us this time to highlight this incredible piece of legislation by an incredible legislator, my dear friend, Representative Delisha Boyd. But before I do that, if I could, I walked in just on the tail end of the last discussion, and I want to applaud the city council and applaud the members of the audience who stepped up today in support of our young people who have worked and deserve to be paid. They deserve to be paid. Young people are, when they're out of school, they've got extra time, they go and they do productive things. We talk about a community of supporting our young people and wanting to do right by them and giving them wholesome things to do. And we also teach them that an honest day's work begets an honest day's pay. In this case, they've done their part. And I know you guys will do an audit and fight to do your job to make sure that they get paid. And I appreciate that. I just want to lend my voice to your efforts to make sure that we send the right message to our young people, that we respect them, that we appreciate them, and we're going to pay them according to the work they perform. So thank you. Today we gather to highlight HB 224, now Act 230, a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous lift for those of us. I see JP left, but as a member of the Senate and Madam President is a member of the House, and you as legislators here on the City Council, you know the challenges it takes to pass any legislation, but particularly in this climate, a climate where we have such hate speak, a climate where there's an attempt to roll back gains that we've made for small businesses, disadvantaged enterprises. To have a bill navigate its way through the House and Senate and ultimately to the president's desk is no short of a miracle. And it demonstrates the incredible work of this tireless legislator, Delisha Boyd, to be able to build the coalition to bring us to this point. And of course, I can't say another sentence without giving great pride and accolades to the collaborative that has been there fighting, oftentimes alone, without resources, without anything other than the grit and commitment to make a difference. And so we're very proud of the great work that the collaborative has done, continues to do, and will continue to do as a part of our community. Today, we look at an opportunity for us to really put teeth into creating opportunities for small businesses that have historically been shortchanged, if you will, in the way of whether it's financing, bonding, or opportunities. Opportunities often leave small businesses short, even if they got the opportunity to participate. Oftentimes, pay was withheld until a time is which that the majority firms might offer pennies on the dollar for the work that's been done. I implore you to, in all contracts, to make sure they're fair, to make sure that DBEs and organizations are treated fairly, and that not only do they get an opportunity to participate, that's one part of it, but making sure that they get an opportunity to be paid timely. Because time is money. And when you hold small businesses money for 120 days, that goes into 180 days, and then sometimes that dollar becomes 50 cents because the cost of doing business, at some point you just have to settle in order to keep your employees paid and keep the lights on. So Act 230 will go a long way to give you additional tools in your tool shed to provide resources for small and disadvantaged businesses that so desperately deserve it. And we will continue as a member of the Small Business Committee and in the Congress. We have fought to create opportunities for small businesses. This is a great adjunct. This is a great partner and a great opportunity to build on the work that the collaborative and so many other organizations have been fighting for, to provide real, tangible resources for small and emerging businesses to be able to compete in a major marketplace with resources and leveled field that give them an opportunity to be successful. So I'm happy to sit here with my dear colleague and congratulate her on the incredible work of passing HB 224, to likewise thank the collaborative for their incredible technical assistance, work on the ground, shoe leather to working the legislature, to being in local bodies, to being in Washington, to being in city councils, and to being in the legislature, to tell the story and to tell it effectively, that no one's asking for a handout, just a hand up, asking for an opportunity for fairness, not for a favor, asking for an opportunity to be able to compete in a level playing field that gives everyone an opportunity to survive and thrive. So thank you, Madam President, for allowing this time on your agenda. Members of the City Council, thank you for your willingness to listen and participate. And thank you for the great work that you're doing in the area of minority business enterprises and making it a reality and not just a wish. So God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Good morning to the members of the City Council. Good morning, Madam President. This bill was my feel-good bill of the session. The collaborative came to me earlier this year, maybe January, to talk about your desire to have a bill that created set-asides for DBEs. And throughout this time, nothing is done by one legislator. It's throughout with the supporters and advocates that I've had help me champion this bill through to the City Council. You guys demonstrated what I call good government. Each one of you signed a bill in support of this. Signed a letter in support of this bill, which went a long way when I was in committee, to be able to have your voices stand with me for this effort. We all know that small businesses are the fabric of our environment, the fabric of our society. This needed to happen. I'm glad it happened when it did. I know we've said it, they've been trying for about 12 years to get it through. Everything happens in God's time. So I think this is the perfect time for us to award the people who are the soul of our communities, small businesses, being able to compete amongst themselves, not to have them compete with bigger businesses or prime businesses. They get to compete for up to 25% of contracts among themselves. This is a huge effort. I want to thank the collaborative, Ms. Barbara, Ms. Geneva, who was supposed to be sitting here with me, and the rest of the collaborative members for believing in me, for trusting in me to carry their baby, as I call it, and bring it full circle. Also, once again, just thank you for your help in getting this done. And this will be a huge impact on our society moving forward. And I'm here for anything that I can do to assist in the future with this bill. Thank you.
I want to say good morning and thank the council and the leadership that you've given in the support of the collaborative. My friend Kim may be gone, but I wanted Kim to hear that we're not a 501c3. And with that, I'll tell a brief story told to me by one of my mentors and one of the first lieutenants of Dr. Martin Luther King, and that was Reverend C.T. Vivian. He said to me, he said, you know, they sick dogs on us and we kept coming. He said they shot water hoses on us that tore the skin off our arms and we kept coming. He said they gave us a 501c3 and a grant and we stopped coming. See, we got to understand what that means. That's not to knock off 501c3s, but equity and liberation for Black folk ain't gonna come through no 501c3. They are service providers. And the reason why the collaborative chose, because we need to say things sometimes that people may think are political, but it's really about what's equitable and fair. This legislation helps support the struggle for fairness. And it's a very difficult thing. Equity seems to be a dirty word, but it's something that we have to work toward. This gives us a piece, more than a drop in the ocean, I believe, but it really gives us many, many drops in terms of getting to where we are. But I want to be real clear. It doesn't matter if we don't have the leadership that moves forward on the thinking and the processing of legislation if they don't do it in the spirit that the legislation was created. It just becomes words on paper, like to some folk, the Constitution of the United States. So you as leaders, and we look at you, you have pushed forward, and I'm so proud of that. And not about us always agreeing, but you have been serving, some of you, let me be clear, some of you have been serving leaderships because you made decisions that may not have always been popular, but it was the right thing to do. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to you, my personal councilman, Mr. King, Councilman King, thank you. And we'll talk about that later. But thank you for that and thank you for the support. And we will continue to work with you to make sure that there are not just processes put in place, but processes that are monitored to ensure that the spirit of this legislation is carried through to impact small businesses. Small businesses, people will often say, are the backbone of a community, the backbone of a society. In reality, this city has been breaking the backs of small and minority-owned businesses. It's time for us to change the way we do what we do. It's time for us to change the way that we see the world without possibility of equity. So those of us who believe in the possibility of this city will continue to do what we do, and we'll continue to reach out to those of you who believe like us that equity can be achieved in New Orleans.
Thank you, Councilman, for giving us this time today. The summary of the act has been read in the video, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I do have a few comments. The collaborative tries very diligently not to bring you a problem without a solution. Act 230 is a solution, but I want to be clear, it's not a panacea. It's not going to change the status of DBEs and minorities and African-American businesses overnight. We need a sustained effort by you, this council season, next council season, and beyond to make this happen. One of the issues we have to deal with, and you talked briefly about it this morning, we've now got to go out and convince DBEs that this is real. We've got to convince these minority contractors that they're going to get paid. So we have an opportunity here to give them an environment where they can grow their businesses, but we've got to convince them that this opportunity is real. They remember the history of the city of New Orleans and its payment system. As a small business, I would ask myself, well, if they didn't pay the kids this summer, why would I put $2 million on the line? You know, we've got to now do the hard work. And we need your help to make this not only real, but fix the parts of the system that we've been dealing with. So I appreciate everything you've done. This bill has been a long time coming. It is a step stool, but we have to have a sustained effort. I thank you for your time.
I'm kind of shy, so y'all gotta forgive me.
Yeah.
Good morning, City Council, and thank you, Vice President Moreno, for putting us on the agenda for today. But also, I know we keep thanking Representative Boyd, but we have to really keep thanking Representative Boyd, because she is the real true example of representative government. As she said, when we approached her, she didn't hesitate. She didn't hesitate. Let me say that again. She didn't hesitate to be able to take this bill and to usher it through the legislative process. So we got to really commend legislators like her who hear from the community a solution, and then she get active and getting it done. So we have to commend you and give you your flowers while you're here. And as you heard today, the importance of this legislation and how it's going to impact small businesses to be able to grow and to be able to thrive, like the congressman said, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. But one thing I want to emphasize that we know that the data center reported many years ago, and that it has been consistent over the last 30 years. We know government is not the end all be all, it's not the silver bullet for growing minority and women and small businesses. Most small businesses, we only been getting over the last 30 years about 2% of the gross revenue in the private sector. Once again, let me repeat that number, 2% of the gross revenue in the private sector. So that basically means that we ain't been getting nothing in the private sector. That equates to about roughly $50,000 on an average for businesses. And I had a slide that I wanted to, when I talked about income and poverty, and I'm just gonna kind of make you all aware, if you are not aware, the poverty level, according to the census data, the national poverty level is 11.6%. That's the national poverty level. The poverty level in the city of New Orleans is 24.8%. 24.88%. So we are basically double the national average in poverty in the city of New Orleans. And also, as you can see, some of the income levels, and when you look at incomes and earning, when they got $46,942, give or take, roughly off by $2,638, that's the medium. When we know that majority of African-American families basically make about $30,000 in the city of New Orleans. A white family is about $85,000 in the city of New Orleans. A Hispanic family, $65,000 in New Orleans. You might say, Steve, well, what's the relevancy of that? Most businesses are financed by two things: debt or equity. Debt or equity. That's what most businesses are financed by. And if we have huge amount of income disparities in our city, then we have businesses who are really struggling to be businesses. Most of small businesses that are owned by people of color only have one employee, themselves, one employee. And so the importance of this legislation about giving small minority and women-owned businesses opportunities where they don't have to be one own employee of their own business. They can go out and hire other folks. I know we always like to recruit other companies to come here in New Orleans, and we always trying to recruit and retain some of our businesses, but we got to focus on the small businesses are here. New Orleans is a small business town. We're not going to compete with Atlanta and they're number 14 Fortune 500. We're not going to compete with Houston, Dallas, Austin, none of those cities. So we got to be able to ensure that we give the economic opportunities for small businesses to grow. And those small businesses need access to capital. They need access to bonding opportunities. And one of the things that I had in my slide is previously under President Obama, they had the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And I want to commend Congressman Carter and his colleagues in Congress because they reinstituted the State Small Business Credit Initiative under the Build Back Better, or maybe it was the Infrastructure Reduction Act. I don't know, Congressman, you can tell me better. But I think that those resources, the state of Louisiana received $130 million. $130 million. That's 9 times more what they originally received under President Obama. And so why I mention that, because small businesses need access to resource. And so a lot of those resources, they're talking about investing into venture capital, guarantees, but sometimes banks have some of the same underwriting criteria, even with these guarantees that's coming from the federal government. So I hope that you all can also look into those type of matters as well. And the previous council, I sent them a great piece of legislation from Los Angeles County. It's called the Responsible Banking Ordinance. And what that does is that it allows municipalities to look at financial institutions and look at what are they doing to meet the Community Reinvestment Act requirements. It's automatically required by the federal government, but once again, the city, we have a budget of $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion, and that money is sitting in financial institutions. And so I'm hoping that this council can also, we talk about transparency all the time, but maybe that's another piece of legislation that you all can probably implement, and looking at ways of how financial institutions are really making investments back into the community. Not to be antagonistic towards financial institutions who are holding our tax dollars, but to say, how are you really reinvesting back in our community and investing in making loans to small businesses and doing other things that can benefit our community. So thank y'all once again for y'all time.
Hey, thank you all. Mr. President, you were not here a moment ago, but I want to share in our appreciation of the work that the entire city council has done and continues to do. We know with the attack on diversity, inclusion, and equity and inclusion programs, this is a big deal. This is a big deal because we see what's happening in our country. We see the attempt to roll back gains. We see the attack in government and academic institutions. We see the attack in private companies to go after diversity, equity, and inclusion as if it's a bad word, as if something is wrong with it, as if leveling the playing field is not the right thing to do. Well, today, I applaud you, City Council, and although it appears that we're preaching to the choir, because you are already the converted, but even the choir needs rehearsal.
Exactly. Even the
So-
choir
so-
needs a sermon.
That's it. So as we close, I wanna again thank everyone, particularly the collaborative, for being such a wind beneath our wings, if you will, boots on the ground, always working. And of course, to get things done, you need good, effective leadership. And Representative Boyd hit the ground running as a new member of the legislature now in her second term. The people rewarded her with reelection, which is the right thing to do. And again, thank all of you for your continued efforts on behalf of the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana.
Thank you, Congressman.
If I could add one more thing, he pretty much said almost exactly what I was thinking to say, because I don't want us to lose the greatness of this moment right now and the collaborative effort of everyone, the people at this table, city council. I had what some might call a challenging session because I chose to pick 5 bills with teeth. And without the help of our congressman, who I talk to literally almost every day of session, 15 times a day, just to keep me grounded and level to move forward. The calls and texts that I got from our president and vice president throughout some of the difficult bills are worth mentioning and worth celebrating. I probably would have quit had it not been for my brother here, who just uplifted me throughout the whole process. So I want us to leave here knowing that this was a great day. This is a great bill, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of the people who stood with me throughout it.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I did not call at least a couple of names, and I know I missed some of those whose shoulders we stand on. This battle's been going on before many of you came here, and particularly Diana Bejois and Cynthia Morrell.
Right.
Them sisters carried us when nobody else seemed to be in the house. And the collective I, when I think of the community, are very proud to have both, when I think of you, Delisha and Troy, I know that may not be professional, congressperson and state representative, you all have had our back. And I would also be remiss if I did not, Councilwoman Moreno, your staff, see Andrew and Sadie? We got to lift them up. We have to. They were amazing. And for all of you that stand firm, thank you. And actually the work has just started, because now we've got to develop the process to make sure that this happens. And we lean a great deal on you, and we know that. But hey, God made y'all strong. Y'all say y'all want to be in these positions. Y'all got to do what y'all got to do. I'm praying for you. But we are just so grateful that you are here. Because sometimes we would feel like we're flapping in the wings if we couldn't come to you and say, this is what we need to do. So on that, thank you. And the collaborative, I can't call every name, but grateful for so many people who have been with us over the years to get this accomplished.
I forgot I had a couple of things I wanted to say. I got involved really in this work because of this young lady here many years ago. She took me on as her adopted son, so I love her dearly for her believing in me as a young man. But I also wanted to inform the council that we did have the opportunity to meet with Mayor Cantrell and members of her team, and she is supportive of these efforts. And so we got the name The Collaborative because we really work collaboratively with everyone. And so because we know that you all on the legislative side write the laws, and the administrative side, the one who kind of carry out the laws. And so we did, speak with Mayor Cantrell, and she said she is supportive of these efforts. So I just didn't want to let that go unnoticed, that she does say she support these efforts as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. So thank you to everyone on the panel, of course, to the collaborative. You all have been tremendous to work with all along the way, because honestly, you made it pretty easy for me and for my staff. because you come up with the ideas and then we just kind of help you with the implementation piece. And so, Ms. Major, to your point, yes, Andrew and Sadie are amazing. I'm so blessed to have them as part of my team, and they've been with me from the very start, and they are absolutely amazing. And so they're going to help me with the next piece, because the next piece of this is the implementation of this program. And the council's responsibility is to now put in place the rules for this particular program. And so Sadie's already, at work, and I know that Ms. Geneva and Ms. Gould, and they know that already. And so you know that you can lean on my staff to get information to them, and that we'll get this done, and we'll get it done right. I know we have some comments from the dais. Oh, thank you. Yes, to Andrew and Sadie. Yes. Councilmember Green.
There is obviously so much good that I can say about the collaborative of your work, and I've seen it over the years. And thank you for bringing to the council and to the state now issues that are so important, that are resulting in such as the day that we have today, a historic day. But I do want to say, Representative Delisha Boyd, thank you for taking on this tremendous initiative, and thank you for your success in the legislature. And yes, this means dollars going into the pockets of disadvantaged business enterprises, and that makes a big difference. So thank you very much for your work. Congressman Carter, your work speaks for itself. It was good to see you on yesterday. $207 million coming to the state of Louisiana. So much that we have to do, but yes, $207 million, which is going to make it easier for citizens to have their homes raised, for example, and to make opportunities available to government to make us more able to withstand the onslaught of storms and what they cause. Thank you very much for the work that you do. And thank you for your work with small businesses in the committee that you serve. It makes a difference. Mr. Kennedy mentioned that this is a city of small businesses. I'm okay with that. To be very honest with you, I'm a business owner myself, and I've known some very successful businesses here in the city. I happen to own a real estate company, and honestly, it's hard for me to compete with a 105-year-old firm that's been around forever before I was able to do my business. But this kind of initiative, this kind of effort presents an opportunity, not necessarily with my business because it's on a private level, but for those who want to do business with the city, it makes it easier for them to compete, to take advantage of those opportunities. And that's how we grow businesses in our city. I was the head of economic development 30 years ago. 25 years ago. And Baltazar Electric is a good example of the beneficial results of having goals in place and having programs in place. Who would think that as you drive throughout the city of New Orleans, that a firm that was founded to work on Harrah's Casino, providing supplies for Harrah's Casinos and other city agencies that many years ago now would be one of the main providers of our lighting here in our city. And those are the things that go unmentioned. That firm doing a tremendous job. That's how they kept the contracts, a tremendous job. Also, ISL Engineering, 50 persons working in that firm, owned by an African-American woman. I'm just pleased to be here on this day, but also pleased to celebrate the fact that many times we focus so much on the negative that we forget the positive that's going on out there. This is a positive day. There are also positive businesses, African-American owned, that are doing well in our city, that are working really hard. And if someone considers why I should stay in the city of New Orleans or why I should invest, keep in mind that in the midst of the challenges, that there are some businesses that are doing well. There are legislators such as yourself who are making sure that opportunities are available to our citizens. There are organizations such as the Collaborative, which is out there working every day to make resources available. So I want those who are considering doing business in the city of New Orleans to recognize that there is some sort of support mechanism, there's motivation, and the organizations such as the Collaborative are making sure that those opportunities are available on a fair basis. And Councilmember Moreno, I look forward to working with you and staff because yes, it's in the implementation. We now have a tool that gives us the ability to put more money into the pockets of disadvantaged business enterprises so that they can put their children through school and that they can build their houses and invest in our city of New Orleans. And I look forward to working with everyone here and also our council to make sure that the implementation of this program satisfies what you wish to have satisfied in terms of why you spent so hard and why you work so hard during this session. So thank you again, Representative Boyd. Thank you, Congressman Carter. Thank you, Collaborative. Thank you for what we're about to do, members of the council. And also thank you for the community that recognizes that it's important that we support disadvantaged business enterprises, African-American business enterprises, women-owned business enterprises, because that is how we build a better future in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. I see no more comments from the dais, so I'll take it. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Morrell. And then Councilmember King.
I'll be very brief because, I think Eugene used up all our council time right there. But,
Obviously, I'm going to be very brief, but watch.
There's no time limit.
I will bet. No one can watch your stopwatch. Thank you, Representative Boyd. Thank you, big brother and mentor, Congressman Carter. Thank you, Ms. Major and the collaborative. I know that y'all do an excellent job of keeping government honest. And I want to say that in a very definitive way, in that I know that my big brother, Congressman Carter, knows, and so does Mr. Green, knows what it's like when you have an administration that is intentional upon lifting up DBEs. And I think part of what you've seen over the last couple of years is that you've had several administrations that are not intentional about lifting up DBEs. And the efforts that have been made today through last session with the work by my sister, Representative Boyd, is really presenting opportunities, and how government responds to the opportunities that are out there for small businesses, small disadvantaged businesses, is really on us. You've laid the table. It's incumbent upon us to take the tools that have been given to us to provide opportunities to lift up our community. And I fully expect the collaborative to be back if we're back to that unfortunate time where we're waiving DBE requirements and everything else to not take advantage of these opportunities. That's no longer upon the businesses or the people that provide the tools. That's on us. And I appreciate that y'all will consistently be here to call a spade if we don't do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Councilmember King.
Thank you. Thank you. Want to first thank State Representative Boyd for doing this. Something was said in the video. One word sums it up, and that's monumental. So thank you for that. Congressman Carter, it says a lot for you to come out here to show your support with your very busy schedule. So definitely appreciate you. Ms. Major, I can hear you speak all day because you tell it just how it is. You don't hold anything back, and that's definitely appreciated. And one thing, the collaborative for their efforts and their support. Mr. Kennedy, you put a stat up, but you had a stat that said, I think 24% of the cities in the poverty level, and to take it a step further, it's about 32% of the Black people in the city are below the poverty level. So that needs to be highlighted, and that's why this is so important. Ms. Major, you stated that equity is a dirty word sometimes, and I think Congressman Carter echoed that. But I also want to say that saying the words African American or Black could be sometimes viewed as a dirty word, because let's not forget, or let's not pretend that all DBEs aren't created equal. So we have to be even more intentional to make sure that Black-owned DBEs get a piece of the pie. I've been around, I've seen head scratching acts done where DBEs are 49% owned by the husband, 50.1% owned by the wife, and that's now a DBE, or maybe the math doesn't equal up to 100%, but you know what I mean. So we want to make sure that we're intentional in making sure that no one skirts the rules, no one goes against the spirit and the letter of this legislation, to make sure that Black-owned, African-American-owned small businesses get their fair piece of the pie. So again, thank you all for the work that you've done on this.
Councilmember Harris.
Well, I'm the last to speak, so that means I'll speak quickly. Representative Boyd, you're one of my favorites, and I thank you for everything that you do, not only for Black people in New Orleans, but for women in Louisiana. And I just want to put a pin in that, because you've been a champion for us as women's rights are being eroded in the state. Congressman, thank you so much for everything you do and the money that you bring to our city and to our state. The collaborative, I'm such a fan and we need to do more work together. I can tell you, having tried to shepherd someone through the city's DBE process, that it is a broken process. And to Councilmember Green's point, we need to make sure that the rules implemented reflect a fair process that is swift, because as we know, the procurement process of the city is not swift at all, and it needs to be, especially as we're getting our Black and women-owned businesses paid. I said this in our last meeting, and I just want to put a final point in it. New Orleans is based on Black small businesses. It's the basis of our economy. And if we don't support the basis of our economy, New Orleans won't be here. And guess what? Neither will Louisiana, because we are the economic driver of the state and we can't forget about it. That means that Black people are the engine that drive New Orleans and the state. So thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate you, and I'm happy to work with you as we go forward to implement these rules.
Let me take public comment. Edward Parker, you're up first, and then W.C. Johnson.
It's a good day for me. I want to thank everyone. Thank you, Congressman Carter. Thank you, Legislator Boyd. I've never met you. Thank you, Council, our progressive council. Voting is important, and for all the people who say that voting is not important, look at what's happening today. This legislation, just think about it. To get anything done in this red state, that a conservative Louisiana legislature, we got it done. And a Black woman got it done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Also want to thank the council. Thank you guys. We have a start. Let's make sure that this Office of Supplier Diversity is intentional, has the funding, and also has the staff to make sure that this legislation is not watered down. Also, Councilman King, I want to thank you for what you're doing. That piece of legislation you're pushing to break up this monopoly in the French Quarter with Lucky Dog. Thank you very much, brother, because that is needed. Black small businesses have been neglected too much in this city. Today is a start to dismantling that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. W.C. Johnson, followed by Deborah Gould.
Yes, equally, I would like to thank the collaborative, like to thank Congressman Carter and Legislator Boyd. I'm with the New Orleans United Front as well. And back in last October, we utilized the collaborative impact study to begin to fashion and produce a crime plan for New Orleans because of the collaborative impact study. Now, we have since been pushing this because we have come to find that the problem with DBEs in New Orleans is that there is no teeth to the monitoring and forcing it to be a reality. We're looking for teeth to be a reality for what has just been passed, what has been in place, and what will come to be in place. Because a lot of words are good, but when you get down to it, they don't mean a whole lot. You got to have that muscle that makes it happen. This is 2023, not 1963. And we need to have a monitoring process and an enforcement process that's going to make sure that all this work our politicians have done come to fruition. Thank you.
Ms. Gould, followed by Corey. I'll try your name in a second. Ms. Gould, go ahead.
Well,
Pull it down.
the person standing before you is, I am Deborah Washington Gould.
That's right.
President of Deborah Gould and Associate Inc. This is a monumental day. The collaborative experience today on Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, is capturing a day and time of excellence by the members of the collaborative group. I want to say thank you to Congressman Troy Carter, to State Representative Delisha Boyd, and to the City of New Orleans council members for believing in us, working in collaboration with the collaborative, and especially to all of the collaborative members who's present here today. If you would just take a few seconds to please stand and be recognized. We did it, y'all. We did it. I thank each of the collaborative members for their heart, their love, their support, their time, their encouragement, and their talents. Pulling our resources together, sometimes large, sometimes small as a group, but as you can see today, we have been steadfast and immovable and mighty warriors to represent small, minority, women-owned businesses. Today is monumental. So I must recognize other collaborative members who are up in heaven, who have made a tremendous difference. To the late and beloved, my man, my husband, Joseph Gould Jr., Lonnie Hewitt, Calvin Hampton, Melvin Creasy, Carol Baltazar. They were the spearhead. It was their voice at the table that have kept many of us. And in the late words of Joe Gould, I am for all of you. I'm not against anything, but Black folks got to get paid in this city. And we got to be recognized that we are the cornerstone that makes the engine in this city works. Whether it's one employee, 50 or 100 or more, we are making the difference, but we have to have those opportunities. So in this administrative, the progressiveness of this council member and to Mayor LaToya Cantrell, but most my recognition to the Office of Supplier Diversity, every person that's been in that job, we have been able to build rapport and establish and build relationships. So they get it. So it's been a collaboration and partnering. We're gonna make them work like you're gonna make them work. Because we're gonna keep showing up. We ain't going nowhere, the collaborative. And I want y'all to know that. But this day, HB 224, now at 2:30. We're gonna be around a long time. This law is passed. I love you, Sarah. I love my congressman. And I love all of my collaborative members for hanging tough. We did it.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. All right, I'm having trouble reading the next name. Corey Gerard Dowden?
Yes. How you doing? I'm glad everybody's so happy today, boy, I'm telling you. But I still want to know for what? This is the Akyel Road, right? This was read this, right? Do you know there's not one number on this? How much money or anything? How much money is the program for the prime? How much of a prime get? And how much the DE supposed to get off that? I always say to my, I've been dealing with the collaborative since it was in the transit building way back then, way back when we first started, right? I've been dealing with this forever. And I say it again, we still shooting for the daggone from the seats on the corner. We don't shoot for the stars, we don't shoot for the moon. They asking for 35% of what the contract is for, say for instance, they said, federal government said over billions of dollars. Why we can't get 35% of the billions of dollars? Why we can't get 35% of the billion? Is this, what's they say in this right here? We'll get 35% of the total amount that was sent from the federal government to here, billions of dollars. Not if a prime contractor get $100,000 bid or $200,000 bid, they gotta get 35% of a $200,000 bid. Why we can't set aside the money, 35% of the total amount they set for us, that in for small guaranteed loans, buying it for our companies, buying it for the insurance for our company. Why we don't do that? Why we got to sell it for little minute stuff? I don't understand this. Really, look here. Yes, we built on small businesses here. We built on the backs of laborers here. Not businesses on back of laborers. Not look here again. I'm not upset. I'm happy. It's a one small step. So let's take a couple of more small steps. Let's take a couple more giant steps. Let's be giant killers. Not keep selling for little thing, little piece, things that they offer, like Lazarus crumbs off the table like a Lazarus. Look here, y'all. Look here. I've been dealing with y'all for too long. And I'm really tired of all of y'all, really telling y'all. I'm really tired of all of y'all. Tired of every last thing. And I'm not saying we got some great men and great women here, but we still thinking of so small stuff. We thinking of things so to keep you begging, keep you wishing to be that prime contractor. Hey, yo, y'all want to do a prime? How about every last one of y'all get together and sign a contract with us and have one business for each other? Not go ahead and get separate accounts. Apply for all together. Be stronger together. Anyway,
Thank you.
peace
sir.
and love.
Thank you. Gary Valier, followed by Jason Banks.
All right, I'm gonna try to make this real quick. Thank you, State Representative Boyd, Congressman Carter, the collaborative, the council, and I think most people are in agreement that this is a step in the right direction. But I think we should only look at this as a baseline. What's written in this bill is good. It's a good start. I'd like to see us do more to bring our kids back from Atlanta, Charleston, Charlotte, Greenville, South Carolina. In the last 2 weeks, I've spoken to people who say that's where they ask about how's your kids. Those are the places that my kids' peers are in living because that's where they can work and be prosperous. I think we ought to look at Atlanta as a model to try to do what they did and insist that we get a bigger percentage of work to our minority community and business. The waiver processes, let's find out who's getting waivers and why, and try to get businesses in those places where there's waivers. NOPD, again, $10 million in waivers, mosquito control, $4 million in waivers. Let's find out what's being waived so we could get minorities in those spots. So we don't have it. I think our goal should be no waivers and exceed the benchmark that's set. Again, this legislation with the national trend, we're trying to turn the clock back, trying to bring us back to 1963, giving some teeth to governing bodies so that we don't have to fight as hard, because it's happening in Louisiana too. Let's take this legislation and even add more legislation to build on this so we can bring our kids back home. That's the thing for me. Those 5 fingers that I mentioned earlier, schools, government, clergy, nonprofits, and business, let's make sure they all take advantage of what's done in this legislation.
Jason Banks.
First of all, I'd like to say, make sure everybody can hear me. Thank you, City Council, distinguished City Council, the collaborative, Barbara, and everybody else, Troy at the table. A lot of people in the room, they know me. I've been out here for many, many years, just beating the bushes. I've been in my business for 35 years and I own a copier company. I represent Toshiba which is an $85 billion company, right? It took me a long time to get a product that's on state contract, right? And I don't want this to be like self-serving to me, but I'm not at the table because IT companies, like for instance, the city of New Orleans IT company has vetted only one company that could do business with the city of New Orleans. That's on state contract. That's totally puts me out of the Sewage and Water Board. It puts me out of any city agency. And every machine I sold one to the Office of Diversity, and the Office of Diversity was asked to go to the preferred IT vendor. I am not getting at the table at all anymore because all departments are being directed to one vendor. Now, I am starving. I've been in this business for 35 years and I think I paid my dues, you know. Toshiba, which is an $85 billion company, they give me 100% support. They will send staff down here to help me install machines or support machines, but I am not even getting at the table because with copiers, you don't have to bid those out. You could just go right to state contract. They could go to state contract and choose my machine. The last bid I did win was with the Department of Health, Homeless Health. I got 2 copiers that I actually was awarded the bid, and then IT had them rescind the order because they wanted them to go to the preferred vendor. Now I'm gonna tell you how that was a problem for me. I went to Liberty Bank and I borrowed the money. I sent the money to Toshiba to buy the machines. And then now I'm still stuck with a loan I'm paying back to Toshiba because I sent the money off. Now, I don't know, and I'm hoping the collaborative could open some doors for me, but my problem starts with the IT at each one of these divisions that have selected companies, larger companies than mine, that they prefer dealing with. Not that I can't offer the same support, because out of the 500 dealers across the nation, I've been classified as within the top 50 technically trained companies with Toshiba. That's a great accomplishment, but it means nothing to the city of New Orleans. It means nothing to, I got a lot of churches, I got New Orleans East Hospital, I have that hospital because it was set aside for minorities and I've been doing a great job since they opened, but I can't get at the table with RTA. Because I'm the only Black-owned copy machine company, they can't make it a DB item because I'm the only Black-owned company in the state of Louisiana. And I'm not getting any business from the larger agencies that could really develop me into a real substantial company where I could be a benefit to a number of people in the community. I just want to put that out there. I don't know how that can be changed, or the policy has been set in place where it will never be changed, but it's about to drive me out of business. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Paul, do you have any online comments for this? All right, no online comments. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Rep. Thank you, collaborative members. All right, to the committee members up here, as I mentioned before, Ms. Sune Villavaso with Workforce is now in the chamber. She would like to address the committee regarding payments to the Youth Works program participants. We'll just wait for the collaborative folks to clear out, Ms. Villavaso. Just hang on 1 second.
Hello, hello. Oh, shoot. One second. All right, all right. Congressman.
Appreciate your help.
Oh, yeah, anytime, bro. Anytime, y'all doing good work.
Look, y'all are just looking into all these
All right, everyone. Collaborative members, you know I love you, but you're gonna start needing to move out of the center of the chamber because I have to finish this this committee meeting. Okay. All right, Councilmember Green, Councilmember Green, Councilmember Green, Councilmember Green. Councilmember Green. I need my gavel. Councilmember Green. All right, thank you, everyone. Eugene. Eugene. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Green, for coming back on the dais. All right, let's get Ms. Villavasso up to the table, please. All right. Thank you, Congressman. Please take your conversations outside. Ms. Villavasso, thank you for being here. Please come to the table.
Oh, I don't.
All right. Mr. Mulligan, nice to see you as well. Mr. Montano? I do. I forgot my gavel upstairs. All right, everyone. Okay. Thank y'all for being here. Whoever would like to begin, please go ahead and do so and introduce your team.
Hello, is it working? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Good afternoon, Council Vice President Moreno, members of the committee, Gilbert Montano, the CAO.
Hey, hang on a second, guys. Sorry, everybody who's out in the congressman, my congressman, can you take it outside? Thank you. Appreciate it. Love you. Thank y'all. All right, Mr. Montano.
Thank you. Council Vice President, members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. Gilbert Montano, CAO. To my right, Tom Mulligan, Deputy CAO, Sinead Villavasso, Director of Workforce Development. She'll introduce her staff. I met her this morning, so maybe.
Carmen McKinley.
Carmen McKinley.
She's our new Director of Youth Initiatives.
Thank you. Norman White, CFO, and Frida, our controller. We'll turn it over to Sinead, but wanted to make sure we were here and available to answer and address any questions, both with the complexity of the intake process, the challenges faced, the corrective action necessary through this process and moving forward, and the updated status on where we are with the children getting paid. So I'll pause, turn it over to Sinead, and then certainly address any questions necessary thereafter. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to update and clarify information as it pertains to the Summer Youth Employment Program. As you're aware, there were some challenges this year in getting our young people compensated in a timely manner. I want to say here today, I'm gonna take a break from my written out script this morning. There are no winners here. There are absolutely no winners here. Anytime we fail our youth in any capacity, it's a disservice to them. And I say that in my role as a Director of Workforce Development, and I say that
in my role as a mom. So what we're dealing with right here is no reflection on the hard work and our commitment to not only the youth of the city of New Orleans, but to the constituents of the city of New Orleans. With that said, I will go into our mission and our vision. The mission of the Office of Workforce Development is to reduce poverty, increase wealth, strengthen families, improve the quality of life, and enhance the competitiveness of businesses by responsibly leveraging limited public resources. Our vision. The vision of the Office of Workforce Development is to build a strong and collaborative workforce development system that meets the needs of New Orleans businesses and job seekers, thereby creating a healthy, sustainable economy.
Ms. Villavasso?
Yes.
I'm gonna have you go a little bit further down into your presentation because you've come before us before and come before budget. So we understand, the purpose of the program and your office. So I think if we start, it looks like in page 11, is it 11, Leslie? Page 8. Leslie would like to start at page 8.
Okay.
Thank you.
So job assignment process, the Mayor Summit Youth Employment Program. Youth are assigned to a job site based upon their preferences as listed in their application. The Summer Youth Program Manager and Summer Youth Program Assistant work together to connect each youth to a preferred job site. Youth were contacted formally via email or phone to provide detailed information for the job assignment before orientation. Pay schedule. And so.
Ms. Villavasso?
Yes.
Hey, it's over here. Hi, good to see you. So you said youth were contacted formally via email or phone to provide detailed information for job assignment before orientation. Is that where they would provide information to get paid, meaning name, address, or does that come later in the process? I guess if you could walk us through the process.
For our registration goes live. I think it went live like March 27th. During that registration process, when we're meeting with them at be it Joe Brown or wherever the locations were, we go through the application with them. We talk about just the overview of the program. So we're creating the framework for the program right then. We're talking about the documentations that are needed. We're talking about the pay periods. We're going through the whole process just to get them just to give them information so when they enter the orientation that's outsourced, they're aware of what the expectations are of the program.
And then I guess at what point do they provide?
And so if you look on slide 7, it kind of clarifies what I just stated.
And what documentation do they need to get paid? I assume some sort of work permit.
So the work permits are done through our office, but more importantly, they need a birth certificate, they need a social security card, they need a bank account, they need, help me out, proof of residency.
And I assume that some kids show up without having all of that documentation. I don't know that I could get all of that documentation to you to get a job.
Yes.
So what is the process that you undertake to make sure that they have their documentation in order before they're assigned to a job?
So with the impediments that we deal with certain populations and so certain group of youth, the only thing, so our funds do not provide for us to purchase those documentations. However, we do not turn those youth away. What we do is we put their files on the side and we have career coaches to circle back with them to ensure that they follow back up with us to give us those documents so that they can fully enroll into the program.
And I assume that the kids, and I'm sort of skipping forward. So of the 1,100-ish kids who were hired, 950 were fully paid. This is according to page 11. I assume that the remainder of those kids did not have the full documentation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the kids, I think it was roughly 172 kids. They departed the program for various reasons. And so of the 1,146 hires on a budget that was given of 1,040, 172, 80 of them, 84 were no-shows. 20 of them declined the position without reason. 19 were summer success withdrawals. 18 had to attend summer school. 11 accepted jobs as lifeguards with NORD. 9 accepted another job internship opportunity. And 5 did not receive emails concerning orientation nor placement. 4 failed a drug test, and 2 unfortunately passed away.
Okay, so again, I guess going forward, there were 974 participants. You're saying 950 have been fully paid, so there are 24 children left who have not been fully paid.
Yes, and so I would like to clarify that point as well. We had 950 that were paid. Of the 24 who have not received their last check, only 9 did not receive any payment throughout this summer process.
And again, is that because of documentation or timesheets?
No, if you look at page 13, of the 24 youth who are currently awaiting payment, 15 were due to timesheets not provided by the work site supervisor. 8 of the youth participated in the NORD program and needed to be terminated. And that's a process. Like, these are 8 youth who worked for NORD in the spring and in the fall and the spring. And so we have to back them out and terminate them and then rehire them in our system. So that's a process, and I'll allow the finance department to talk about that complicated process. And then we have 1 who had a social security number verification issue.
Okay, y'all can go on, I think, from slide 13.
Okay. So all my papers are all over. Okay.
I have it here too.
Okay, so challenges. So application material errors. The information provided by the parent guardian on the application contains errors or incomplete information. Another bullet point under that is the manual data entry process from paper application to Excel file resulted in an error with the youth's information. And as you guys know, whenever you're doing business, there's always going to be some measure of human error. So we wanted to acknowledge that. Banking information errors. The routing or account numbers provided by the parents or guardian was incorrect, or the bank account has been closed by the bank. So, and the last other issues is payments sent by the city to the correct bank account were never received by the recipient. Worksite providers did not provide timesheets.
Thank you. Okay, so here's what I'm seeing based on the presentation that Mr. Barabino did yesterday in Councilmember King's Committee Community Development on the NORD jobs and what you're telling us today. So first, when it comes to the number of kids who are still looking to get paid, what we received from Mr. Barabino yesterday was that there are 591 kids to still be paid out of NORD, okay? So that is 363 from Teen Camp Session 2, 52 from Teen Camp Session 1, which by the way was like 11 weeks ago, and then 176 from the Teen Sports Challenge. I think what's interesting is that he mentioned percentages of kids who didn't get paid due to the fact that applications weren't done correctly, things like that. And it was a very low percentage. It was roughly 3%, which is consistent with the 2% that you're showing with applications not being done correctly. So I think the bigger piece is with the Nord kids who haven't been paid for weeks since the end of session 2, which ended, looks like July 14th, according to the presentation from Mr. Barabino. And then from the end of session 1, which I can tell you when that ended, and session 1 ended June 23rd. So I think the question here is for the finance department, why is it taking so long to pay roughly 600 children?
So thank you for that question. So when we receive the files from NORD and from the mayor's office for the programs, there is information that is incorrect in the files that we receive. So we will receive bad data, bad social security numbers, bad dates of birth, bad addresses. And when that information is uploaded into ADP, ADP kicks it back stating, letting us know what the errors are. So finance department works with NORD and works with Sune's shop, and we go back and forth to help them vet and get that information corrected in the process, because the only way we can pay them, we have to create an employee ID for them. So the only way we can create an employee ID is when all of the information is correct. Correct date of birth, correct social security number, correct
So you're
name.
saying that there were, how many incorrect applications were there? How many errors did you find? How many employees had errors?
It was over hundreds that had errors. And that's why we would, every time we received the file, we would upload it into ADP, the errors will kick back, we would send it back. So it will go back and forth for a time between the two programs. Because we can only pay what is correct. Once we get a correct file, then the employee ID can be created. Then there's a second file that they submit to us, which is the payroll file. So that includes the employee ID, the first name, last name, the number of hours that child worked or for NORD's program attended, and then the hourly rate. Then we upload that and we're able to pay what they submit to us.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some disconnect here because what we're hearing from NORD and what we're hearing from Workforce is that there are roughly only, 2-3% in each different area, whether it's Workforce or NORD, where there were application issues, but then you're telling me that there were hundreds? I'm just trying to get clarity.
I can answer that question. I think what we're speaking to of the 2% today is what is remaining to be paid.
Right.
I think what you're referring to is early in the program.
Oh, no. No, I'm referring to, there are still, according to NORD, 591 kids who have not been paid.
Right.
That they're supposed to be paid, I guess, after Labor Day. So that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So you're saying that,
So I can address both of them.
okay,
Right? In this particular case, there are two sections. One, I think we talked about it earlier. The initial file comes over with all the information, basically making that child a city employee. Records, information that's Frida talked about. That gets pushed back and forth to make sure we get the correct data. That's when roughly a large number of those information was kicked back. The remaining people that went through got paid. We had to now correct the remaining data to get the first payment out. And that those individuals paid. We're sitting here today with very few remaining after that first episode. This particular issue, when it comes to NORD, is similar. We cannot pay anyone if the information is correct because we don't know who to pay. So when the parent put the information in the system, whether it's the address, social security number, or any other information that's required, the system will not pay them because it's checking the data. So when that data is checked, it spits out errors. We go back to the individual. They work with the parent to figure out how to correct that information. That's the first piece. That's why the first amount is kicked back. After that, once that data goes in correctly, we can move forward. The remaining items after we get the first list together is if the bank account information is correct. But we don't determine where the information is. We just submit in the system of the data and records that we were given. So that's what you're seeing in this one. There was a phase 1 with NORD's group, and there was a phase 2 with NORD groups. And you're referring to the phase 2.
Yeah, I was talking about phase one where there's still 52 left, and then also phase two where there's 363 left, and also the Teen Sports Challenge where there's 176 left. Councilmember Morrell.
Right, if I can respond, 52 was with the bank account information. When the phase one, remaining in phase one, and phase two, the large amount was the first time we received those records. So they go. to the
When you have a
first
bank account information issue, why don't you just cut them a check?
We do, once it bounced back, we can cut them a check, but we don't know as a bank account information until that bank reject the information to us. So when you submit a routing number and a bank account, we have to take it at face value. We don't know all the bank account and routing information that exists in every bank. Once we transmit the file to a bank, that bank says, we don't recognize it, push it back to us, we immediately cut a check.
A couple of things. First, I think generally speaking, I think a lot of the public frustration is that when this issue came to light in early July and updates were given on when it would be resolved, basically, we would create promises that we would resolve things by a set upon deadline, and then we blow by the deadline with no resolution. In particular, Workforce said on July 26th that as of July 21st, 800 people had been paid, and that the remaining balance would be done by August 8th to August 10th. It is now August 29th, and it's still not resolved. Generally speaking, and this kind of goes back not just to this issue, but to the vendors being unpaid. I think that when I look at surrounding parishes and similar municipalities, the common thread that I find is that we have significant challenges with the software we are using to do basic things. Brass is trash. It is absolute garbage. I think the fact that we constantly find vendors who aren't paid or were paid that are in brass or not in brass is fundamentally a problem. I think that when this council says how many vendors exist right now who are unpaid, that we have to go and enlist the legislative auditor to do forensic accounting to find out. Any municipality should have a balance sheet to go, here's the unpaid vendors. Here they are, here's how many days out they are, here's what we're in dispute resolution. That should all be done like that. The second issue is ADP, in my opinion, is very problematic because it is this weird, almost healthcare based program when it comes to payroll. And though it is presented as being a modular program that is one size fit all, I think when you see things with the summer employment program, it does not fit. I think that when, I don't know why, I understand, and speaking of Mr. Barabino, what some of his logic was behind trying to teach financial responsibility. That was a whole kind of idea with North, that we're paying kids who aren't working, they're just going to camp, but we're trying to also teach them financial responsibility, and that's why he wants the bank account and so on and so forth. I have two retorts to that position and this position. We should have given kids the option of, do you want a deposit or do you want a check? Just set up front. And if the parents and the kids want to learn our financial responsibility program, they can do that. And then we can deal with what happens afterwards. But I think for many people, including some of our own employees, we don't make direct deposit mandatory. We say you can have direct deposit or you can have a check. And I don't know why we didn't just tell these kids, would you like a check? Because I think at this point, many of them were just taking the check. Now, if their name's misspelled, if there's some issues on that end, that is a problem that that kid and that parent has with the bank when they go to cash it. But generally speaking, I don't know how comfortable I am with giving, if I had a kid in this program and this program required me to give you their birth certificate, social security number, and other information, considering the amount of breaches the city's had, I don't know if I'd have had my kid be in the program. Just generally speaking. I mean, I say that considering the Louisiana Department of Revenue Louisiana Department of Motor Vehicles has been hacked twice. So, I mean, it's like, I am religiously vigilant when it comes to my kids' personal information, and the idea that we are having kids from 15 to 18 having their social security numbers and personal information and birth certificates and information uploaded into a city database, even through ADP, I think generally speaking is problematic. I would think that if there were significant problems last year with payments, I don't know why we didn't just switch the checks this year to begin with. Just generally speaking. I mean,
No, I understand your point. If I can add this, I want to make a little bit of corrections. It's all ACH for our employees. We don't do paper checks. We do ACHs.
okay.
The other issue is, of the problems that we talked about today, roughly somewhere between 6 to 8% was checks kicked back. The overwhelming issues were initial data entries required to be handed to workforce development by the parents in that part. That was the overwhelming issue. So you can get the most sophisticated system we possibly can, but we're gonna have to figure out how to intake that information.
Mr. White, I'm going the opposite direction. This is unnecessarily sophisticated for summer employment. These are not children who we are taking on their pension liability and onboarding them to be city employees. This is summer employment. I mean, so to that point, I don't know why we would not, because I mean, I understand honestly from a city employee perspective, making direct deposit with the respective deductions made throughout the direct deposit makes things a lot clearer and easier to track. But you're talking about kids who, for the most part, it's one-time employment. They're coming here to do just the summer program. I guess my frustration is, it almost goes back to, and God forbid, because I'm being triggered on August 29th, dealing with the Road Home program like Katrina, where government makes the system needlessly complicated when it is not required to do so. Is there a prohibition against us giving these kids paper checks? Is it legally impossible?
No, I want to make myself clear. Absolutely not.
Right.
Like, as I said before, it was only 10% of the problem, which means 90% was not a check issue. So even if we alleviated the check and went direct deposit and gave paper checks, we would still have 90% of the issues. So what we discussed as our solution is to get an application at the front end that will intake the information, whether it's a paper check, whether it's going to ADP, whether there's a separate system. The intake of the initial information is going to be very important.
I feel like we're speaking two different languages. Why do you need my kid's social security number to work for the city of New Orleans?
It's required. It's required.
Okay. And
it's identity for the individual.
okay,
There's several
why do
John
you
Smiths.
require my kid's birth certificate for work for the city of New Orleans if you have their social security number?
Well, that's not, is required to make sure you're identifying who you are as the individual and your age as the.
But you have a paper social security card. Why do you need both?
Well, because it's not, you gotta talk, maybe the program. as
That's
far
the
as-
program
right, we
requirements.
don't-
We'll
we don't-
let Sune speak to that.
And so those are the requirements that were in place when this administration took over. But more importantly, when you enroll in school, you need a what? Birth certificate and a social security card, right? And so there's no difference. How do we know
Well,
Jane is Jane if we don't have a birth
Well,
certificate?
it's very
and a
different because because a school is reporting to the state through a variety of different mechanisms, including the MFP process, through standardized testing. There's a plethora of requirements as well as a legal obligation for children to attend school, which is why all that information is required. Further, you need all that information to prove residency so a kid can go to free public school. The obligations we put on a kid to attend school should not be similar to the kid doing a summer internship. If that's the logic, I mean, because I understand as a former legislator, because of the fact that so much of state resources flows to track children to their school, why that's necessary, but I just don't know why. I understand if a case can be made for certain identifying data that is necessary, sure. I understand you're saying the paper check was kicked back because of the routing problems occasionally. I'm sorry, some of the payment issues were routing issues because I guess the account number was wrong or the routing number was wrong or some combination of both, correct?
Right, all we know, and being very specific, is when we send the information based on the routing number in the bank is kicked back. We don't know the particulars about why it's kicked back. That bank would not accept it, not identify or recognize the information.
So if we had paper checks, that would have removed the kickback problem.
It would have
Yes.
removed 8% of the problem.
Yes.
So the other 90% was misfilled out applications,
Information.
Yes.
information.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did ADP uncover that information was incorrect?
Once they submit a file, the initial file, it looks into one, it could be simply the address itself is not located in New Orleans. It could be that there's no address that exists. Is a whole litany of items that we can submit to you of how it detected it. And it can be it's repeated information. It looks at the entire file, and what it does is kick back, and all we know is identify what these errors are, and we would submit it back to the program, and the program would go back to the parent and say, okay, we need these corrected. We don't know what system ADP uses, say, here's the problem, but it does kick it back.
Okay, and what is the timeline when a problem's identified, non-check related or routing related, for the office to reach out to the parent to correct that problem?
Yes, so we have to wait to receive that information, but can I go back to address the documents that are needed for the program? If you
We
would
can,
oblige me.
I think
Yeah,
this
so-
is, this is more pertinent, but we
Yeah,
can go
but
back to
I
that.
just wanted to say this, like, those kids have to have a work permit. We have to do age verification and make sure that they're legal to work, because taxes and everything are taken out of these funds.
What is,
So-
who processes the work permit?
So our office, we take the information of the participant and we send it to the state.
Okay,
so they're the
what,
ones
what
who-
documentation is required for the state work permit?
Birth certificate and social
Social security
security
number,
number.
okay.
Yes, yes.
So if a person has obtained a work permit, a valid work permit, how do they then get kicked back for an erroneous address from finance as well? I guess I'm trying to wonder, like if, how many kids had a completed work permit, but then had an incomplete address or duplication? Was it a 1-for-1 overlap? Did it not ever occur? Was every kid that had a work permit, did they receive a check?
Every kid that had a work permit received some sort of payment, be it direct deposit.
So did we have kids
Except for
working
the
without?
9 who have never received a check, be it deposit or a paper check, if I'm following your question correctly.
Okay, so if we went through the process, first party, we're the one issuing the work permit.
Yes,
The assumption would be, since we have issued a work permit and that kid has begun to work, we have verified their age, their identity,
mhm,
and their address, correct?
yes.
Then why isn't every single kid with a work permit fully paid up to date?
And so from our perspective, we input the information, all the information that's given to us from the parents. We submit that information to finance, and it's not until it hits finance that we receive the kickbacks, be it erroneous or mistake in the routing, bank routing issue.
I'm
Social
gonna kick
Security-
it back to
Well, not
council,
Social
the
Security.
council vice president, but I guess my concern is this.
Mhm.
If we are gonna be so reliant upon documentation being correct for payment, then why are we allowing kids to work with documentation that is incorrect? Because if the documentation was enough to get a work permit, to then enroll them in the program to do work,
Mhm.
I could see objectively why a child or a young adult would be livid that they had enough information to start their job, but then finance goes, some of your information was incorrect, so you couldn't get paid. The analogy would be like, if I walked over to Burger King tomorrow and filled out an application and they gave me a hat and said flip burgers, and then I worked for a month and they said, sorry, we couldn't process your check after you did a month's worth of work because your address was wrong. At that point, as a guy who's been flipping burgers for a month, I go, well, why in the hell did you let me work for a month as if all my paperwork was correct? Why'd you get a month's worth of labor out of me to then not give me my check? So I guess
Yes,
I understand that there's a two-step process. You process work permit, You send data to finance, finance processes data, then cuts check. But if the disconnect happened here, why are the kids paying the penalty for that disconnect?
So I want to address that. So remember I was talking about it's multiple files that they send to us. So that first file is with the application process, the intake of them becoming a work permit. We've passed that stage. They now have employee ID. Finance has them in the system as an employee. Now it's time for them to send us the payroll file, which has the hours and the rate of pay for them to be paid. We only can pay what is submitted to us to pay.
I get that, but what I'm saying is that why didn't we as a city on the front end make sure all the documentation was complete to make sure they could be paid timely before we put them to work?
Yeah, there's an answer to that. I think if you look at it, it is. So the initial intake of the information is on a paper document that someone retyped on a spreadsheet. It doesn't get to the city until it gets to the payment process. So that's why we said we have to come up with an application and the intake, so all that information is vetted in the beginning. It's not vetted until much later when that entire file is moved over to finance to look at.
So my understanding is that these mayoral internship programs were done through intake sites at 3 locations, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. This is another instance. Why didn't we just post these applications to like a Granicus web portal and have everyone fill out all their information and attach all the
Or
information?
Google Forms.
Or Google Form or something, just have it done electronically so that if all the information comes in to Workforce and the information is there for their permit, as well as the finance information, and we verify all of it on the front end, then before that kid first shows up to work, it's all your paperwork's complete. Because it seems like, to be honest, and I'm just gonna call a spade, we were more obsessed with having a photo op, with having 3 locations to have the kids show up to sign up, rather than just have them fill out a document at home, have it processed electronically, and tell them where to show up for work.
And so I would like to respond to that. And so because of the issues that we encountered last year, we met with IT to discuss a fillable application and also with the uploading of the documents. If my memory serves me correctly, there were some issues with the security of that information. And so that's why just saying.
We have people applying to the city of New Orleans every day on the internet. So we saying that their information is not secure?
No, we're not saying that.
I know we're not saying that.
I want to make sure we be careful what we say. I want to be careful what we say.
Yeah,
Putting the wrong information out there and may harm us. We're attempting to get some message out here. I want to answer your question.
Okay.
The issue is simply this. We don't have the application at the intake to verify it from the beginning. We have, even if you use Google Docs, it's still a document that's moving the information, is not checking anything.
Exactly.
That's why we have to bring something in application at the beginning. So once initially a child put the information in the system, it's checked immediately. If that's done in the front end, it's smooth sailing on the back end of it.
We're saying the same thing. Right now, Workforce is intaking them and giving them their permit. Then they're forwarding the remainder of the information to you guys to do the finance piece. If it's all done through a singular intake portal where every respective agency gets their piece, Workforce gets the information for the permit, you get the information from a singular portal to process the financial information, then both sides go, we have what we need, we have what we need, show up here to go to work. You avoid the Workforce has their permit, finance has a problem, they've been working for a month and they don't get paid.
Right. If I can, I want to try to do this a different way. If we, and just look at one individual. So
I'm going to yield my time to
if I can respond.
You can respond, but
Yes,
I'm going to let, I
So
give
if
up.
we just talk about a regular employee, because that's how the system works from intake, whether it's at Workforce Development or otherwise. If you hire an employee, that person goes to HR and they give their information to HR, all the information, their address, telephone number, social security, all that information. That's in the system. So we have a record of that individual through HR. Then when it comes to payment and the supervisor, you approve your folks' time, that time is submitted to finance to now make the payment. What we don't have is an
Okay,
intake.
I
piece
was
at the
out,
beginning to
come right
deal with
back in
that.
for a second, Council Vice President. ADP is so ridiculous, we make salaried employees do timesheets. That's how dumb ADP is. Still put that out there.
So I just have a really just very, very basic question, I think, to kind of sum up what everybody's been thinking, but maybe not saying out loud. There are many cities just like us that do youth work programs. They require the same things that we do, whether it's, birth certificate, social security number, those things. I just went online and looked at several different cities. They ask for the same type of information. There's been many administrations that have done the Youth Works program. But why is it that just within last year and this year, have there been so many problems with paying the kids? Why can't we get this right? Why are we, once again, the one city that can't get it right?
If you're asking me the question, we've been dealing with this the first year. It's not the first year. It's not this year. It's not the first year.
Right.
Back in 2018, we were dealing with this because the entire process.
Well, that's
is-
worse.
I get it, because it was here before we walked in the door. We've been dealing with a manual process, and these folks have been working very hard just to type in individual information of 1,000 folks and in the payroll. I agree.
Okay, so if you knew it was a problem in 2018 and you've known that we needed this application, why wasn't the application built in 2018?
Right, and I need you to understand this. We do deliver payroll information. We cannot do the time and cut the check. The time is delivered to us, signed, and we cut the check based on what is approved. Based on this discussion, you're asking me to do the time and cut the check. There's no way anyone would say that's proper. The time is submitted, and you're right. There are cities who do this, and we have spoken to them, and we're gonna move in that direction. So when the information is on the intake, we can now see when that time is approved by the supervisor, comes over to finance department, it is approved, and we make that payment. We cannot do both. We cannot sign the payroll and cut the check. We cannot do it.
Let me take public comment. Ms. Howlett? Can't read your first name. I apologize. Aisha, sorry.
Good morning.
Morning.
I know that y'all are gonna sort out the details of this process. But because this is public, because we have families in the audience, I do want to speak to the perspective from the Office of Youth and Families and the impact of this work. I'm more than happy to stay for any questions or comments afterwards. With that being said, I just want to go ahead and name that the impact of the money that was offered by council to do this work, although this process has been sticky and y'all are sorting that out, it did what it was supposed to do in terms of making sure that young people had access to these opportunities. I know a lot happens in a year, but a year ago, when we were in this space, a lot of the conversation was about there not being any options for young people in our city, about the public health crisis in our city, especially around truancy and making sure young people are where they were supposed to be. If I go back and look at the data for this, and we're compiling it, our office will be doing it in support of the work that Workforce Development, NORD, and the libraries have done. But in looking at just a small sample of this, we're seeing the attendance was over 90% in a lot of our spaces, which means that the children were where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. That is in thanks to their families also for making sure that they were present and doing the thing that they were expected to do. I know that a lot is happening all the time, but I do want to make sure that we don't cut ourselves off from the opportunity to keep serving young people. It needs to get better. There's no disagreement on that. However, if I look at each of our districts, I know in the 7th Ward, we had an unprecedented number of young people being served by those summer programs, the same in Algiers. And so I just want to make sure that as we figure this out, we don't lose sight of the fact that the money was given. It was given to the young people. It was given to our program providers. The young people showed up. Their families showed up. I want that to always be respected and honored, but I also want to make sure that we do not lose the opportunity to expand and do better and to make sure that young people have money in their pockets. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baptiste, followed by W.C. Johnson.
Mr. Belden Baptiste for the Record Council. Mr. White, Sune, Greg Montana, let me ask y'all a question. Did y'all get y'all checks every 2 weeks? Mr. White, can you answer? Did y'all get y'all checks? Council, Sune, Mr. Montana and Mr. White not being real with y'all. Some of the work permits was forged. I got workers that was called coaches that work. They don't want to come to y'all because they scared, but the timesheets was forged. But we don't want to hear all this woo, 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 woo. JP, you messed up with your question. They couldn't even answer your questions. We know this happened in 2018, but if it happened in 2018, we in 2023 and it's still happening. You know what I'm saying? And look, nobody but the city council apologized to the children. If Sune was right, if Mr. Montana was right, why they never came and said we apologize to your children? And the lady that spoke for youth and families. Youth and families is a big joke. They got rid of Emily Wolf. Look, our kids don't want to hear the woo-woos and all that. When are y'all going to pay the kids? Then, Helena Moreno, you bust them in a lie because they're lying about the numbers. And Mr. White going to try to play with you on the numbers. City finance is a joke. This happened 2 years ago. Then it happened the next year. Tell the truth. But the kids don't need that. The kids want their money. And see what they did to the youth? They didn't mess the youth up. Because the youth ain't going to want to work in the summer program. You know what I'm saying? You throwing the youth to the street. Because the youth figure, I can steal a car and get $1,000 from whoever with the car. This is a joke. This is an insult. And this whole crew need to be fired. All of them need to be fired. JP, I love you because you bring no questions to them that mess them up. Helena, I like how you bring it. Leslie Harris, I like how y'all bring it. Because this new council, I got to give y'all, like I told y'all fuss, but I like it because y'all coming with all the smoke. And I love it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, these people are insult. They're sitting here, getting no solutions, sitting there lying. Mr. White said, oh, we didn't pay him in a month. So that's all right. And then Mr. Nair said, there's no winners here, but the kids are the losers.
Thank you, Mr. Baptiste. W.C. Johnson, followed by Mr. Parker.
W.C. Johnson from Community United for Change. You know, it's sad that we have to go through this for our children, because that's what this is essentially about. All of these people that sit before you today are representatives of the mayor, which makes them representatives of the city, which in my personal opinion, should all be fired immediately. Because if they can't handle something this simple, what are they doing with the complex stuff of our city? But they must be doing something right because they all got paid. That's right. So, I mean, and it hasn't even bothered them that they have children out here who haven't been paid and they continue to go on. I want to know why after years of this problem is it continuing? In your mission statement and in your vision statement, you have failed our children and failed the city's commitment to organizational and governmental standards and practice. Standard and practice are two essentials for government to be viable, to be able to function. The students are important, and they don't seem to be really concerned about the students. They have excuses after excuses why our children weren't paid, and the more they give their rationale and reason for it happening, the deeper in water they get to suggest and really expose the fact that their reason and rationales aren't true. And that is something that this council has to take into consideration and consider, because there has to be penalties and consequences for their behavior.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Parker, followed by Angelina Elder.
another problem, another set of responsibilities we put on you new council. You progressive council people, please continue to do what you're doing, please, because this shows how dysfunctional this administration is. We need you to continue. It's not so much for me, the fault of these people here. We've got a dysfunctional administration. Please continue to do what you're doing and get these kids their money and continue to let the public see how dysfunctional this present administration is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Ms. Elder, followed by Kim Ford.
Good evening, board. My name is Angelina Elder, civil rights activist, one of Mama D students. I want to thank JP Morrell, Councilman at large, second Councilman at large, JP Morrell, correct me if I'm wrong, and President Council Helena Moreno, all y'all, because y'all speaking truth, y'all hear us. But just to say with Job One, I'm a public servant and I have a business in my village where I feed the needs and provide opportunities for the youth. Now, we've been having a lot of people calling. We have paid for uniforms, haircuts, everything. But just that with Job One, they need to be better prepared. Y'all need to have their license, all the information that they need up front. And for as youth and family services, they said that they take care of the 7th ward. I'm in the 7th ward. And I am feeding the needs of our villages and our youth. You know, this shouldn't happen. This should not happen. Like my other battlefield buddies say, this board needs to be fired. They gotta go because you have to be prepared. You have to have the necessary needs for the youth to make sure that they have their ID, their birth certificate, all the things that they need before they start work. This should not happen. This should not, because we in a village with the youth. We there with them. We live with them. Thank you.
Ms. Ford, followed by Mr. Bollier.
Oh my goodness, how do I do this in 2 minutes? Well, my experience with this program is unique in that I brought my 2 nieces who were recent graduates of Booker T. Washington to go, because they're twins. I went to bring them to go and apply. Even how they found out that this program was open and willing to take applications was a very convoluted process. So they found out through some messaging on Instagram, which appeared to be some kind of spam because it didn't have the city's logo. And because I look at that kind of stuff and our kids are getting spammed all the time. So they were told to show up at a location, which was at the Rosenwald. So I go in there with my nieces and, and they were like, oh, you don't have a birth certificate? Oh, you don't have, then we found out we needed to have all of these things. And kids just getting out of high school, they had just made 18. So they want to be independent, thinking now, I've grown up, I've graduated, and I'm going to apply for this summer youth just like I did as a child, to go and make some extra money so that when I go off to college, I'm going to have a little pocket money, But when I walked into that facility because Job One hosted the application process, and my nieces were treated so horribly, I was embarrassed about what they did not have so that they could, because we had all of these big hopes. Like I was so happy, the 3 of us were so excited. We were going to go sign up and then go to lunch. Child, we get over there and it was the worst experience ever with Job One. And they ended up not hiring them because I went with them and their mother was like, No, I'm not giving those people my income because they wanted her income information. Why they had to have her income information to verify who her children were. They wanted her income information. Everybody had to have that. And I don't hear them saying any of that up here. And I feel like I'm hearing them say it was the parents' fault that the children were registered improperly. But that's not how this was set up. And I saw many people just like me being turned away from that application process and their children walking with their heads down because they couldn't apply for this because this program was advertised as a $15 per hour job. Remember, we were talking about that? We talked about that. And so I've been trying to reach out to Ms. Villavasso since June when I contacted Councilmember Thomas because he was going to support a job fair. He was going to support a job fair with Job One at the church out in New Orleans, this big mega church out in New Orleans East. And I said, Councilman, don't go out there and promote Job One when they haven't paid our children. This was in early July. I said, don't go out there and support them when they haven't paid our children, because I'm going out there with my speaker and microphone. Don't make me drag this church into this process. But he went anyway, talked with Wesley Bishop. He got me in touch with Ms. Villavasso. Still, her promising me, and I have the text right here if you want to see him. I'm going to send it over to Channel 4's investigative reporter because we need some eyes on what's happening here. And for them to come in here and lie like this today is disingenuous when they knew way about them not paying the children back in July. And Ms. Villavasso I invited her to come on my radio show. And she refused to do it because she had promised me that they were going to be getting paid then. You know what I'm saying? And now here we are almost to September and it still has not happened. And I want to be able to have the children's rights because this is wage theft. They have some criminality that's going on here. White collar fraud is a real thing. And I have seen administrators get caught off in handcuffs before. I have lived that life with Hanno. You understand what I'm saying? There are administrators that have get caught out. So everybody that's sitting up here at this table, we are watching y'all. This is not going away. It is inexcusable that you did not pay our children. And I want to see anybody who operated in any kind of inappropriate manner. I want to see you caught it off here. And I want to see you prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law if you have committed a crime of wage fraud by not paying the children in the city of New Orleans, because that's where we going at. And look, I've had city employees tell me if I don't like it, take it to the courts. I am no attorney, but I come from the court of public opinion, and we gonna win. We're gonna win. You cannot harm our children and not have repercussions from that. And I'm glad that you're here today, but you should have been here because you've been knowing that this was a problem. You've been knowing that this, you get no excuse from us.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Mr. Valier, come on up, and last card will be Ms. Ray. Second to last card is Ms. Rayford.
An anniversary of Katrina. We drowning in dysfunction. We can't pay children. That's a crime in of itself. I'm hearing plenty of excuses and no solutions. You know, how we gonna make sure this problem don't happen again? You know, it's like the highly educated versus the kids. You know, we too smart for that. You know, I know we don't run our households like this. If you're taking care of your kids at home like you're taking care of our city's kids, it ain't right. What about unhoused kids or kids who come from poor, undereducated households who really can't navigate this process? You know, I was an Army first sergeant and a fire captain. If I had done my job like some of these city agencies do their jobs, people would die on a regular basis from dysfunction, dysfunction. A lot of stuff is training. You don't prepare for different type of scenarios, this is what you get. You don't run practice runs. What happened if this system go down? Or what happened if this person don't come to work? You know, there's no excuses for this. I mean, it's inconceivable that we can't get children some money. You could probably ask the public, hey, this child is short X number of dollars. Can you pay it up front in cash and we'll reimburse you? This is ridiculous. And talk documentation, and I taught a lot of stuff, report writing and all in the military and the fire service here. If you didn't document it, it didn't happen. I would keep a notebook in my pocket to write everything down that happened during the course of the day. So at the end of the day, I check myself to see how did my day go. We obviously not doing that in city government. We're taking care about people's money like it's access, like it's we're treating tax dollars like a slush fund. You're not being good stewards of our money. I mentioned the 10 cents on the dollar we spend when we go to the store. Your property tax bill, taking a look at that, your store receipts. We do real, when somebody gets something in the mail, like a tax bill, you look at it and see if it's correct. When you go, before you walk out of Walmart, you're checking your receipt to see if you got the same number of items that you put in your basket. For highly educated professionals to be doing this is wrong. The Office of Youth and Families, you know, I don't see it in the 7th Ward. I liken it to like the mayor's gun violence prevention office at 2020 Jackson Avenue, which was a joke. Council, please take a look at everything going on in this. There was a reason people asked for this mayor to be recalled. We recognize it, but I guess the people in the bureaucracy can't see it. And I mentioned the 5 fingers again: business, clergy, government, nonprofits, and schools. Why we can't get together and solve these problems, at least for the children and the old?
Thank you, Mr. Valier.
All right, one more thing. Why can't we have a city ID card, like a library card?
Oh,
Just a
I
regular.
have a long history with that.
If I lose this thing.
Tried to do that my first term.
I could go to my buddy and say, print me a card.
I'll fill you in on what went down with that. Thank you,
The
Mr.
city
Valier.
library card for all high schoolers that's valid to do city work.
Thank you, Mr. Valier. Coming up next is Ms. Rayford, and then our last speaker will be Andrea Agi.
Hello, Madam President, City Council, and everyone speaking today. I spoke earlier in regards to my support in favor of the audit. I also want to point out that me speaking right now is in favor of our kids. I heard numerous things today sitting in this meeting. One, that it's a great day due to our collaborative efforts in regards to small businesses and DBE. I stated that I am a DBE certified small owned businesses. What I also recognize is that those are many opportunities for our kids that are involved with this youth program to connect with other business owners to expand their career opportunities of working with the city. I also want to point out that I think it's a lot of pointing fingers that I'm seeing and that I'm observing here. I'm not sure where the miscommunication lie. I can only point out what communication I have received as a workforce development site location. I do know that they popped up just randomly to see what the kids were doing. I had communication with them weekly. But I also want to point out, I did hear from the council that this was an issue since 2018. If we knew this was an issue in 2018, I think numerous people have stated, why haven't we changed the issue? And also, if the city council knew that it was an issue, as well as the workplace providers, where's the collaboration? At the end of the day, our students and our kids, they don't care if the council finds fault. They don't care if everyone on this dais is fired, because that still doesn't solve the problem. So for one, I would like to know what's the solution, because we can talk about the problem until infinity, but that's not going to solve the problem. And then two, why don't you guys put together some type of think tank? We have so many universities in the city of New Orleans. I'm pretty sure they have academic and accounting programs that can figure out a solution to this problem instead of us just pointing fingers here as to where it failed. Because at the end of the day, our students do not care what happened, how it happened. We just need to find a solution. So once again, I thank everyone for their time because I do believe everyone is working hard. No one wants to be at fault for this situation. But at the end of the day, we are in this situation and we just need to find a way to collaborate and get kids a solution. And the fact that we only have about 1,000 spots for our kids in the city of New Orleans when we have a population, I think close to 400,000, that shows the disparity right there. We are not going to solve the problem with that. So I
Yeah,
just
and
wanna
the year
say-
before that, we only had 365. Yep, thank you, ma'am.
Exactly.
All
Thank
right,
you, guys.
that's your time. Thanks. Andrea Agi. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
It's AG.
Agi.
Good afternoon, Madam President, City Council. My name is Andrea Ag. I'm the Senior Staff Attorney at the Workplace Justice Project at Loyola Law Clinic. We represent low-wage workers with workplace claims, and have represented many workers who've experienced wage theft, which is exactly based on what I heard today has happened here. We are particularly concerned about the withholding of the wages for these young workers. We encourage them to contact us to learn about their rights and so that they can share that knowledge with their peers and grow a community that has more awareness for worker protections and the rights of workers so they can hold employers accountable when they violate the law. I just want to briefly give our information to those youth workers and any workers who are interested in learning more about their rights and talking out some situations that may come up in the workplace in general. We are a resource for the community. They can reach us at 504-861-5571, which is an intake line. And we're also online at www.wjpnola.org. And again, if you have workers with any questions, we are the only organization of our kind in the state. And we would like to make our resources known to anyone who might be interested in learning more about their rights.
All right, Ms. Ag, thank you.
Thank
All online comment?
We have one comment from Bradisha Harness. Thanks to the council for addressing and looking into this. Job One system is flawed and all need to be held accountable. It should not be a problem to pay our kids by any means. We need a better system for the summer. Our kids have been lied to, faced with unacceptable barriers and no accountability from Job One leaders. Pay your kids. Sine, can you let the council know why were my kids removed from my site with 1 week left to continue the program after I reported no pay for our kids to the news media? Remove these barriers, hold people accountable, and let's move forward. Some of my kids still haven't been fully paid. That's the only online comment.
Thank you. All right, well, that completes the comments from the dais as well. So with that, our agenda is complete and I have a motion by the president to adjourn, a second by Councilmember Harris, and we are done. Thank you.